Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. So, this is my second episode of Research to Real Life, and I'm thinking about once a month I want to come on here and talk about a book that has made a difference to me personally and as a psychologist, with Monday's episode talking about the book and Thursday's episode making the book relatable by putting it into practice with tools and tangible skills and strategies you can try to make the research from the book come to life. So last month we did our first book, Atomic Habits, and this month I want to look at the book Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. Now, if you've ever felt like you weren't enough, or if you struggle with perfectionism, or you're worried about what other people think, or if you've ever found yourself trying to prove your worth, this book offers some meaningful insights. The first time I read it, I was so impressed by this book. I actually read it a second time shortly after and then made notes and kept track of things that I thought were really great. So before we get going, I want to begin by giving full credit to Brene Brown for her research and her writing, and I'm simply sharing a few of the ideas in the book that stood out to me personally and as a psychologist. So this is not a summary of the entire book, but an invitation to explore some of the most helpful messages that I saw. One of the central ideas in the book is wholehearted living. Now, what does this concept really mean? Wholehearted living isn't about living a perfect life. There's no such thing as that. It's about living authentically and with intention, embracing who you are and recognizing that our worth isn't something we have to earn um, through achievement or perfection or pleasing everyone around us. So many of us can grow up believing that if we're successful enough, productive enough, attractive enough, or helpful enough, we will finally feel worthy. But Brene Brown's research actually suggests something different. So the people who she studied that experienced the greatest sense of connection and well-being weren't people with perfect lives. Remember, there's no such thing as that. They were the ones who believed that they were worthy of love and belonging simply because they exist and they were human. Now, that is such a powerful shift from what some of us believe we need to do or be before we can feel worthy. So, imagining two people who both make a mistake at work. One immediately thinks I'm a failure. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent, and the other thinks that didn't go the way I hoped. I'll learn from it and do something different next time. Now, both made a mistake. The difference isn't the event. The difference is the story that they tell themselves about what the mistake means. So another idea I appreciate from this book is the distinction between perfectionism and healthy striving. So many people think that perfectionism can motivate us to do our best. And research suggests that perfectionism is oftentimes driven by fear. So, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of not being enough. Um, but healthy striving is quite a bit different. So, healthy striving says, I'd like to do well because this matters to me. Perfectionism says I have to do this perfectly or I'm not enough. Those are very different mindsets, very different motivations. One leads to growth and the other leads to exhaustion. So, the other thing Brene Brown talks about that I like is the importance of courage and vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean oversharing with everyone, it means allowing ourselves to be seen. And vulnerability can look like asking for help or admitting when we're struggling or having a difficult conversation, um, to take an emotional risk when there's no guarantees of how it's going to work out. So, whether it's applying for a new job, telling someone you care about them, setting a boundary, trying something new, vulnerability often shows up when courage is required. Now, the book has lots of great things in it. I invite you to read it if you haven't, or check it out. There's a lot more than what I'm sharing today. But three little takeaways from what I'm sharing with you right now. Your worth isn't something you have to earn. Perfection isn't the goal, but living in alignment with your values is the goal. And third, courage and vulnerability often go hand in hand with growth. So I highly recommend reading that book. There are a lot more thoughtful ideas and practical reflections than I can possibly cover in a short episode. And on Thursday, so on Thrive Thursday's episode, I want to share 4 practical ways to begin letting go of perfectionism and embrace this wholehearted living concept in everyday life. So thanks for joining me today. Join me on Thursday and we'll dive into this a little bit deeper. Until then, take good care of yourself. You got this, and I'm going to see you soon.